Welcome back to another episode of Gut Talk, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Jenna and I host this podcast with my older sister Jill, where we talk about all things health and wellness. Today's episode is such a good one. We are sitting down with the co-founder and COO of Omni-Biotic, Hannah Kleinfeld. And if you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or straight up skeptical about probiotics, this conversation is for you. Hannah shares her personal health journey, how struggling with Lyme disease and her own gut issues completely changed her life and ultimately led her to the world of probiotics and gut health. We also dive into the story behind Omni-Biotic, including how the science-backed probiotic brand made its way from Europe to the US and why it's so different from what you typically see on store shelves here. In the episode, we're breaking down what actually matters when choosing a probiotic, the biggest misconceptions around gut health and probiotics, and why so many low-grade probiotics miss the mark. Hannah explains what a healthy gut can do for your mind and body, and what she wishes every woman in her 20s and 30s understood about supporting their gut before symptoms spiral. We also get into why Omni-Biotic's powder formula is such a game changer, who their different formulas are for, what kind of results people typically notice, and how quickly. We wrap up the episode with Hannah's non-negotiable daily gut health habits, advice for anyone currently struggling with digestive issues, and the one wellness tool she cannot live without. And if you want to try Omni-Biotic for yourself, you can go to omnibioticlife.com and use Gut Talk for 15% off your order. We'll include it in the show notes. This episode is equal parts educational, empowering, and practical, so grab a notebook or just sit back and enjoy, and let's get into it. Please welcome Hannah Kleinfeld on Gut Talk.
Before we get started in all of the health talk, have you ever been to Austin before?
Yes, I have.
So you've been here a few times?
Yes, but I still need some recs for good places to eat.
Oh, okay.
I'll be all ears.
We have a list.
Yeah. It's fun talking to someone who also does business with their sister, because as sisters, we're always cracking up because it's just so much time you spend with someone who you can, you've probably had your sister fights with, and you just have a completely different dynamic. But did you guys start the company together?
Yeah, so basically, yes. Okay. I discovered Omni-Biotic through my own journey with Lyme disease when I was about 3 years out of college. And I'm happy to go into that later on. But then as I was at business school, this question kept coming back to me of why is Omni-Biotic not in the US? Why are there no similar comparable products that take this targeted approach to probiotic medicine here in the US? And that's essentially what led me on this path to bring Omni-Biotic. And then right around the time we were launching, my sister was actually living in LA. And I kept calling her being what would you do for this? What would you do for that? And she, coming from a communication marketing background, she had all this great advice. And as I was thinking about who do we have to hire, who do we have to bring on, I just kept thinking why hire if I have someone in my family who has been giving me so much great advice? And as you guys know, working with family, yes, it comes kind of with its own interesting dynamics, but also I think there's just a level of trust and a level of just understanding each other that, just seemed like a no-brainer. So I was able to convince her to come back to New York and to really walk alongside me on this journey.
I love that. Okay, let's rewind, take a few steps back.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from?
Germany.
Okay, and you grew up there?
I grew up there. So Lena is my sister. Lena and I, we both grew up there until I was about 10 or 11. And then we moved to the US, to New York for 3 years. And then we were back in Germany, which was my high school time and Lena's middle school time. But then as I was finishing high school, I was pretty sure that I wanted to come back to the US just because I loved the US education system. And I just had a really great time when we lived here. And so as I was applying to colleges in the US, my parents ended up moving back to the States as well. And we've all been here ever since. Okay. So back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Where specifically in Germany? Just out of curiosity.
I was born in Munich.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Oh, you have? For what? Oktoberfest?
Actually, shockingly, no. I went in
good.
high school.
Oh, high
yeah.
school. Wow.
And I loved it. Jill always hates when I talk about my experience in Europe because I've been to so many places and I don't shut up about it, but I love really any place I've been to in Europe, I typically love, and I love Munich.
Yeah.
Jenna studied abroad in college,
Yeah.
and when she got back, it was the most obnoxious experience for like me and my mom and my dad, because like, for instance, we'd be like eating pasta and she'd be like, this is nothing like the pasta in,
Of course.
you know,
I mean,
as
Sicily.
you
And you're
know.
like, right. And then I'll never forget, we were like driving past mountains and she did it on purpose, but she was like, this is nothing like the Alps. And it was like, okay, we get it.
I
Like,
get it.
get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yes, when you fly in over Munich and you see the Alps, you're
Beautiful.
like, I'm home.
Well, I studied abroad in Switzerland. Like that was our home base. So I have a partial to
Yes.
the Alps and that whole area.
But you know, it's interesting that you ask that, because I do think that growing up in Europe and specifically in Germany, I grew up in a way where my mom, we went to local farmers markets every week, and that's where she bought the majority of our groceries. I only recall her really going to kind of like a supermarket for things that you couldn't get at the farmers market. And, you know, we walked to so many places. I biked to school. When I was 14, 15, I was so independent, and I, you know, we played outside so much. And I do think kind of growing up with this very nature focused approach and eating local and really focusing on that has shaped how I think about my own well-being. And, you know, also I think has had influenced my openness to this holistic, more functional medicine approach when I was going through Lyme. So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I say 100-calorie pack, does that ring a bell for you?
no.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Point proven.
Exactly. Why I say that is because what you just described is like what I hope my future kids get to experience. Like, I think that's the way kids are supposed to grow up. But in the US, especially when we were growing up, like say 12, 13, 14 years old, this concept of being thin was like the form of health that the US was really focused on. And so everything was around Weight Watchers and around this, I don't know what brand it was, but they were 100-calorie packs. So take Oreos, and they did the 100-calorie
see.
version.
Into
Got
like
it.
thins.
Into like these like crisp type thins. And so if you ask anyone who's in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even more, what 100-calorie packs mean to them, it's like it was your childhood. Like, you didn't have cookies, you had like the 100-calorie pack, because there was this obsession with being thin while you were in Germany riding your bike, going to fresh farmers markets. Like, I think that really kind of does paint the picture of the US versus Europe when it comes to the way that we value health. And I think it's starting to shift in the US, as
Yeah.
you probably, you're on the front lines of that.
Yeah.
But that's just like, it's so crazy. I feel like you grew up the way I think we're supposed to. It was what it sounds like,
Yeah.
or closer to that at least.
So we want to start with your journey and how you brought Omni-Biotic to the United States, but I really want to hear about your experience with Lyme, and then also finding the world of probiotics and holistic healing. So will you explain your journey of experiencing Lyme?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I was a type A overachiever. I came out of college and went into business consulting. So it's a pretty high intensity lifestyle. You're working a lot, you're traveling a lot, you're not sleeping much. And I was loving it though. It was, you know, my first professional experience, my first job, making my own money, living in New York City. And that went well for about 2.5 years. And then slowly I started having weird symptoms creep in. You know, it was like I was more fatigued. My gut was acting up. I was suddenly reacting to things that I wasn't reacting to before. Cheese, milk, bread, pasta, you know. And then my workouts started getting harder, even though I wasn't changing anything. Then my brain fog started. I felt like I was suddenly the slowest person on the team, which if you're working in a very fast-paced environment, that's pretty scary. And at that point, I was also going through business school applications, preparing for the GMAT and all these tests. And it was just really scary to feel like my brain wasn't catching up with me. And I just had no idea why. And, you know, I told my family and close friends what was going on. And everybody kind of just said, oh, but you look fine. You must be fine. You're probably just burnt out. You're probably just tired. Like, take a vacation. And I did, and nothing changed. And eventually just kept getting worse and worse. And over one Christmas vacation, actually, I was in Germany and talking to my aunt who had, you know, quite a lot of experience with tick-borne illnesses. And she really encouraged me to go find a Lyme or tick-borne literate doctor in New York to see if that could be the root cause. And So eventually I did that, and thankfully they were able to find that and identify it, and that really set me on this journey of treating it. But because this tick bite had most likely been in my body for multiple years, and I had been at that point ignoring symptoms for almost a year, it was a long journey to recovery. Multiple rounds of antibiotics. Back then it was still mainly antibiotics. Now there's some really cool new herbal protocols that can be very helpful, but back then it was still heavily on antibiotics. As you know, if you take multiple rounds of heavy antibiotics for 6 months, that really does a number on your gut. In addition, all the inflammation I was having from the Lyme, from the antibiotics, just wreaked havoc on so many systems in my body. As I said, brain fog, nutrient depletion, so much fatigue. Anyways, so yeah, but that really introduced me to this world of functional medicine and holistic healing. And then there came a time when my Lyme or my tick-borne co-infections were under control and they had been eliminated, but I was still so far from feeling my best. I was barely getting by. And that's when I really started working with my functional medicine doctor, my nutritionist, all these wonderful healing people in my life who to really repair these root causes. And the gut was a huge part of that. I was getting frustrated because a lot of the probiotics that I was trying here in the US, they would make like a little difference, but then it never made a huge kind of step change difference. And then again, I was in Germany and talking to one of my practitioners there who wasn't actively treating me, but she was a friend. So I was kind of telling her about my journey. And she said, Hannah, you must try Omni-Biotic. They're taking the German market by storm. This is a completely new approach to probiotic medicine. They have clinical studies on the final products. It's this powder that makes it so much more efficient and effective. And so I went out and I tried Omni-Biotic, and within a few days, I started noticing remarkable changes in my digestion, my sleep, and then, a few weeks in, I was feeling my brain fog getting better. And I was back in the US at that point. I was asking friends, family, aunts, uncles to send me more Omni-Biotic. And eventually I went on this journey of, is something like this here in the US? I couldn't find anything like it. So that really started this question of why is Omni-Biotic not in the US? And can we bring it here?
Okay, I have so many questions,
Yes.
but let's keep going on the exact track that
Right.
you're on right now. So what did you do next? Like, did you reach out to the founders?
So through a really interesting, the universe sometimes just shapes its paths. I got to know the founder, and at that point, it was more just she was helping me repair my gut. It was more just not really even thinking about, can we actually do this? And then my dad, who at that point was still a Fortune 500 CEO, he was thinking about what are his next steps. And so then a year or so later, as I was at business school thinking about, what's my next step here? Do I go back into consulting? What do I want to do? This question kept coming back of, why is Omni-Biotic not in the US? The gut is such an important part of healing. And yeah, so then, we just the stars aligned and we brought it here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you say we, you and your sister and your dad?
My dad,
Okay.
he really is still part of the business too, although my sister and I are really running the day-to-day operations.
Okay. And just curious, like, how does that work? Are you guys separate from the Europe version? Like, are there different formulas, or is it the exact same formula that you got when you were in Germany?
So we are, I would say it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So the formulas we get from Europe.
Okay.
The names are often different because, sometimes the names just don't translate directly, or
Yeah.
we just have an opportunity to kind of adapt the name a little bit. But for the most part, they're the exact same formulas.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess the next big question is, why is Omni-Biotic so different than all the other probiotics that didn't work for you in the US?
Yeah. So Omni-Biotic takes a different approach in the sense that they don't just take this one-size-fits-all approach to probiotics. We know that different strains of probiotics do different things in the body. So it's a little bit amiss to say, oh, let me just take these 10 strains, put them in a formula and hope that it does all this stuff for you. And we also know that certain strains work really well together, but others almost cancel each other out or compete for the same nutrients and things. So you want to mindfully formulate these probiotics with specific health goals in mind. And that's what Omni-Biotic does. We have a specific formula for restoring your gut after antibiotics, a specific one to support the gut-brain axis. So it really, yes, all of them are probiotics. They all support your digestion, and they go beyond that.
You have this company that's in Germany and you bring it over to the United States. What year are we talking, by the way?
This was 2019.
Okay. Really good time to bring probiotics to the United States, but what was the response and how did business do at the beginning, being that you have this new product that you're bringing, not necessarily, probiotics are not new, let's say, but bringing this amazing product from Europe to the United States? What was the response of people? How did business go starting at the beginning?
Right. So we launched just a few months before COVID.
Okay.
So a very different, interesting time because during COVID, so much shifted online and digital. At the same time, this concept of improving your well-being, improving your resilience really became, I think, a very hot topic.
Totally.
And since then, you're right, this idea of supporting your well-being, improving your longevity, and also the conversation around the gut's role in a lot of this has changed massively. So in that sense, it was a really good time to, come into this conversation. At the same time, this concept of targeted probiotics was so new and so different that, there was a lot of education and a lot of explaining why is it that we actually need this that really had to happen at the beginning to, I think make people understand why really gut health needs a completely different approach.
And I'm curious, what is your answer to the question, why are probiotics so necessary? Why is gut health so important to our whole body health?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and your audience knows this, and I know you have lived it too. When our gut is off, it impacts so many systems in the body. I, over the years, have started to see our gut as a control center for health. So much of the immune system is located in the gut. If you think about it, anything we ingest goes into the gut, and it's our gut's role to decide what is safe to put into our body and what has to be moved out. The gut and the brain are in constant communication. Some call the gut our second brain. The gut and the metabolism are connected. Our gut-skin connection, it's truly at the core of so many things. And I think once we understand that and the power it can have, that's a really powerful thing to know about your own health.
Totally. And I mean, 2019, 2020 was really when Jill and I found that world too, which is so interesting because we too didn't know how much our gut was controlling every aspect of our life and our health. And so we started to supplement, right? We started to find this world of, well, if I take a probiotic, how is that going to impact me? And we failed a lot with supplements, right? Like we took a lot of things that I guess we wish we never spent our money on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say, it was like probably 2022, I started taking a probiotic when I'd had some existing gut issues, but it was just a one-size-fits-all probiotic. And I think it actually made my symptoms worse. Like I felt like it was growing the bad stuff because there was no targeted approach. So then quickly I was like, oh no, like I don't want to get into this. But then with Omni-Biotic, you take like a quiz. So you're giving the information to Omni-Biotic, and then you all are coming back to us and saying, okay, well then you should take that. And it felt like a much safer approach. Like I didn't feel like I was gambling with my gut health because one thing that prior to me fixing my gut, one of my biggest issues was I had the worst immune system. If someone in the room had a cold, I had it tomorrow. And the biggest thing I noticed after fixing my gut in like 2020-ish was that I am far more resilient to the cold or, bronchitis or like whatever that is. It was any sort of virus, I had it. Now I get sick like once a year, where it used to be from October to March. I was in some format of getting sick, but then also that comes with that is medication, right?
Absolutely.
Always on a Z-Pack, always on some sort of antibiotic. And so it was like this like endless cycle that you kind of couldn't break.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it makes sense, right? Again, this gut immune connection is so strong. And I had a similar experience. And, you know, it also goes back to this point of inflammation. Because if your gut is imbalanced, you have inflammation in your gut. And this inflammation, it's often this low grade inflammation that goes undetected. It's not like the active inflammation if you like sprain something or, you know, and it often even goes undetected if you're just doing basic lab work. But what happens is that inflammation sends your immune system in overdrive. So your immune system at that point was constantly fighting the things that were leaking into the bloodstream from the gut that shouldn't be there, little food particles that shouldn't be there, toxins, residue of stuff. So it didn't even have the energy or the attention to then fight whatever germ you were being exposed to. So it makes sense then that you were getting sick all the time because your immune system was busy distracted over there and not fighting the thing that was acutely making you sick.
Yeah, it was an exhaustive, like, and I mean, it really was all through high school and college. So, I mean, it was like close to a decade where I mean, I have to think that I probably had over 100 different prescriptions, and that's not an exaggeration. And there was not one doctor that looked at my chart and was like, oh, you've been prescribed medication for, you know, bronchitis 14 times. We should probably look at something. No one ever talked about gut health. It was just like, oh, you're infected again.
Right.
Oh, your immune system is really having a tough time. But there was never any root cause cure. But it sounds like part of the reason that you were able to get ahead of it was because you had this home base in Germany where they had a different approach to what happens when you get sick and you're healing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that for sure. And then, you know, I just got so lucky too of having an amazing team of functional medicine practitioners in New York. And, you know, they, of course, even as I was going through Lyme and repairing my body, the gut was always part of the conversation. Yet the true game changer happened when I was trying Omni-Biotic.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about Omni-Biotic because, like we said, we've been taking it, and something that's so interesting is that I have been doing muscle testing. That's a big thing. And one of the biggest things that they've found is like how much my liver needs support because I was dealing with skin issues. The liver is a filter for everything. So emotions and toxins and everything like that. And when I took my Omni-Biotic test, what came back was the Detox one, which is liver support as well. So I was like, all right, you guys got to check in my book. But let's talk about the formula of Omni-Biotic and what sets it apart from other probiotics in the market.
Which I think is really important because you can buy a probiotic anywhere. Like you can go to Target, you can go to Walmart, like you can really get one anywhere. So I think it's really important for anyone listening, like the difference in the quality of probiotics is so important. So I just want to say that because it's like, don't lose us right now. This is really important to understand.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. You can buy a probiotic in many places. And I think one of the common misconceptions, and unfortunately, even what doctors will say is they'll be like, you can take any probiotic. And I always cringe when I hear that because first of all, a one-strain probiotic is completely different to a multi-strain and multi-species probiotic. If you take one strain and hope that that will literally help improve your immune system, improve your digestion, your bloating, your constipation, your diarrhea, your brain fog, like that just doesn't work. And instead, if you have a multi-species, multi-strain, that just means you're having different strains and also different species of probiotics, which we know, again, every strain does something else in the body. So you're just getting this synergy. And the fascinating thing is certain strains can actually work together in a team to do things that each one alone couldn't do. So 1 + 1 essentially makes 3 if you think about it in terms of like the impact that they have in your body. So ideally, you know, it's a multi-strain, multi-species probiotic, so you're getting this combination of benefits. In addition, the product themselves should be clinically tested. So many brands, not just in the US, but in the world, they will rely on a lab test of this one strain that did one thing in a petri dish. And they will say, well, because it did that in the petri dish, it's going to do that in you. However, we don't actually know that because, again, depending on what other strains are in the formula, how it interacts with other things in your body, you don't actually know that until you test it in a human. So each Omni-Biotic has multiple clinical studies in humans showing the specific endpoint. So with Omni-Biotic Detox, we did a study on people with diabetes. And we showed, significant improvements across cardiometabolic markers, endotoxin levels, and even insulin resistance markers. And so that's the level of science that we bring to the table.
And can you just explain the difference
Yeah.
between a clinical study and like just a random study? Like what are the
Right.
requirements for it to be a clinical study?
Yeah, great question. Even I kind of use those terms loosely just
Yeah.
now. But when I say clinical studies, I really mean studies in humans, not something on a mouse, not something in a petri dish. Yes, every single strain used in Omni-Biotic is also studied in a petri dish because some things you can see so clearly in a petri dish. Like we have a strain in Omni-Biotic Balance that you can see in the petri dish how well it does in reducing candida. And that's something that's so easy to see in a petri dish because you just put the candida, which is a fungus, and then you put the Omni-Biotic and you see how it kind of like,
Oh, that's fun.
cool. Yeah, it's really cool. But that being said, that's not the only thing we have for Omni-Biotic Balance. So so clinical studies, when I say that, it really means in humans using the final formulation. So the product you're taking in the exact form, in the powder, with us it's a powder, and then measuring specific outcomes.
Okay, thank you. I just
And-
wanted to
yeah.
be clear because
course.
I feel like our podcast listeners are the ones that like want to understand but aren't like super in the weeds of things. Maybe
Yeah.
some are, but I'm always like when I hear clinical study, I'm like, what does that actually mean?
No, I love that you're asking that because it's so misleading.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is.
and
It
then
is.
Yeah.
and even when there is talk about clinical studies, you still want to make sure that it's not just, again, a clinical study on one of the strains in the product. So, there on many websites, you see this product or clinically studied ingredients. For example, if you take like an herbal supplement, turmeric has been studied in so many just studies, right?
Right.
But has it been studied in that final formulation of
Right.
the product?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When looking at the different options for Omni-Biotic, can you switch around? Like, can you take one and then when you're out of your packages, then you get to switch? Like, what's your recommendation there?
Yeah. So that's the beauty of having these different formulations because you can adjust them based on what you're going through and your lifestyle. My general approach is if you're on an Omni-Biotic formula that works for you, keep taking it.
Don't fix what isn't broken.
No, like the Detox for you, it might be great for like 6 months, a year. It might be your go-to. For me, stress release is one of my go-tos. It's that gut-brain connection helping me with just very stressful times. But I cycle in and out. If I feel, now I'm on the road, I'm traveling, maybe I take Omni-Biotic Detox for a few days or maybe even for the whole month. If I had to take antibiotics, I would cycle in Omni-Biotic AB10 for maybe a month or two just to really restore my gut microbiome. So that's the beauty. It's great to stay on one product for as long as you feel like that's meeting your health goals, it's serving you. And at the same time, you have options to switch or cycle in other products if you need to.
So we've kind of going back to my original question. We've gone.
I do that. I'm like the rabbit hole one.
So clinical trials is huge, and that's something that Omni-Biotic does. Tell me more, because I know. Tell us more, because I know that there's me. I'm like want to get into the weeds.
Jenna
too.
like wants to nerd out. on
Yeah,
I love
everything.
that.
The powder formula.
Yes, the
I know
powder.
that's huge, and Lena was very specific to me about taking it in water to start my morning. I like
an
actually
empty stomach.
on an empty stomach. I had like put it in my coffee a couple times, and she was like, "Do not do
Yeah,
that."
yeah.
So, which
Jenna
like
loves to just like superpower her coffee,
me too.
but sometimes it's like too much.
thinking back, I'm like, really, that does not make sense putting it in acid. But anyway, okay, talk more about the formula, because all the girls listening to this, I think they're like Jill said, we don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but we really want to know, like, are these products going to work for us? Because like we mentioned previously, the supplement industry's multi-billion-dollar business now. I would say a majority of companies do not have the science backing. They do not have these clinical studies.
But they have really good packaging.
But they have
and
really good
branding.
packaging and really good marketing
Yeah.
that throws all of us for a loop, and we want to buy it. So
Right.
if you can talk more about the formula and how it's going to help us, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so to recap to your original question, which was kind of what sets these different probiotics apart, right, versus the one you can kind of buy at CVS. So multi-species, multi-strain is one of the ideals. Having it be targeted, so not this one size fits all. The clinical studies, the next thing, which is the powder, the delivery mechanism. You can have the best product with the best strains, but if it doesn't reach your gut alive and metabolically active, you're basically just, I don't even know what you're doing. You're like eating your money or something.
Right.
I'm not sure.
People say like you have expensive pee.
Basically, or in this case, expensive poop, which is, you know,
Even worse,
even worse,
yeah.
I guess. But yeah, so, you know, the powder delivery, just to kind of go into the why does it matter? So most probiotic supplements, they're freeze-dried bacteria or probiotic bacteria, which essentially puts them in this dormant state. When they are freeze-dried, they lose all their moisture. So whatever moisture they encounter, they will soak up like a sponge. In many traditional capsules, oftentimes the capsule opens in the stomach or the upper part of our small intestine, which are both rather acidic environments. So our good little probiotics will soak up this acidic digestive juice, and that either kills them straight away or it makes them very weak. And so I always like to think of it as this kind of like weakened little soldier that we're then sending into our large intestine, where it's expected to do all this magical work, but it's not really functioning at its best. With Omni-Biotic, our powder gets dissolved in water or another more neutral liquid. You could do, you know, milk or yogurt if needed.
Definitely not coffee.
Not coffee, nothing too hot, nothing too cold. So ideally water. And so they rehydrate outside of our body, which means when they meet the stomach acid, they no longer need to hydrate, so that they're already kind of in their top form. And our powder also contains specific prebiotic nutrients for those probiotic strains. So they rehydrate, they find their most favorite food sources, which makes them so strong that they can much better withstand that journey through the acidic parts of our digestive tract. And we've actually tested, science nerds as we are, you know.
Right. I love it.
We've tested this in a GI simulator, which is essentially this machine that pretends to be our digestive tract, and it simulates the acidic environment in our stomach and then, you know, how it changes throughout our intestines. And Omni-Biotic, 83% of our probiotics survived through that part of the large intestine where it needs to be, compared to an average of 7% across leading US capsule brands. So that's a big difference.
It's a staggering number.
Yeah. Jenna's obsessed with Omni-Biotic. Not that I'm not. I just don't.
Yeah.
I unfortunately don't have the nerd gene. Like I'm down to take whatever Jenna tells me. But Jenna's like Jenna was like to me, Jill, like you have to like pay attention here. Like this is so good. Like this is so different. And now that you're explaining it this way, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like this is such a different approach to probiotics than everything we really see on the market.
Yeah, because I get very excited when companies actually invest in their product, right? Because again, like we're saying, the common theme is that there's so many probiotics on the market that, sorry, but you're wasting your money. And it's a shame and it's sad. It's sad to think that there's products out there that we think we're taking to take care of our health, and then we're like, I feel nothing.
Well, that's actually one of the most common things we hear when we talk to people about probiotics. They'll say, oh, I tried so many, but nothing worked. It never did anything. And then when we ask, it's usually, you know, either it was just one strain and it just didn't have that power to really make a lasting impact in their gut. Sometimes it even included things like lactose, but the person was lactose intolerant. So then they're like, oh, I didn't know this had milk. And it's like, well, no wonder you felt worse, actually.
Right.
And, you know, then people take Omni-Biotic and you can feel the difference, you know. And I mean, we hear so many amazing stories of people, you know, depending on what formula they take, like for the detox, inflammation went down, cardiometabolic markers improved, Omni-Biotic balance, the skin clears up, eczema improves, acne clears out, you know, obviously with actually one of the coolest things I heard recently with Omni-Biotic stress release is someone told me that they could see it on their Oura ring. That they're, you know how the Oura ring measures like stress and heart rate variability. And I guess after taking Omni-Biotic for stress release for a few weeks, they saw changes in some of those stress markers on the Oura. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, we hear from people all the time, this, you know, you feel it. If you don't take it, you feel the difference, you know?
So who's a good candidate for a probiotic, but it's specifically Omni-Biotic? Anyone? People really struggling? What do you tell people?
I think supporting your gut, because of how deeply connected it is to so many things in our body, is essential. So to me, multivitamin and a probiotic and some electrolytes, those are like the 3 supplements that I truly carry everywhere. And I think many people benefit from that. If you think about, our gut these days is exposed to so many stressors. Stress, environmental toxins, overly processed foods, toxins in food, alcohol, inflammatory things. Like, that puts a daily stress on our gut, and it depletes our gut microbiome. So the majority of people are constantly depleting their gut microbiome, which is no wonder that then so many people are walking around with constipation, bloating, changes in their bowel movements, right? Brain fog, all these things. So supporting your gut through a probiotic is essential and so beneficial for so many people. Again, the beauty of Omni-Biotic is that you can be targeted. If you are, going through a really stressful period in your life, try Omni-Biotic stress release. If you're working on your liver and your metabolic health, try Omni-Biotic Detox. So you're getting those, of course, the digestive benefits and the benefits beyond. And I think especially for women are disproportionately affected by gut issues. We know that 2 to 3 times as many women suffer from IBS than men. 2x, I think, as many women as men suffer from things like constipation on a monthly basis. And so many of us are walking around thinking that this is normal because we've lived like that for years and we've been dismissed so many times. And so, I think, so many people can benefit from a probiotic, and especially if you're someone who is looking to either address an issue that you're already having, and also someone who just wants to support their longevity and their well-being from the inside out.
I love that. It's a really good point. And that's so true with women, is that not only are we the ones that get dismissed, that have more problems, it's like we're also the ones that are falling for the latest trends and fads and health routines. And I think
we're consumers.
We are. Yeah, I was going to say, and I know a lot of people listening to this podcast too, obviously we were very heavy in gut health in the past. And like we still, Jill and I believe that we need to carry gut health at our core for everything that we do because of how much it impacted us. But I just think it's such a message that needs to be talked about, even though we talk about it a lot. It can't be talked about enough, because I'm sure you saw it with your own health journey, and you hear so many amazing stories about how much people's lives and health has changed by making and taking these small steps, like taking a probiotic, like, working with holistic doctors. I'm curious with your experience, because we didn't necessarily finish kind of how your health changed, but you started taking the probiotic, just going back. What have you noticed since kind of being on your healing journey? Like, what are the things that you do now that are really prioritization in your life when it comes to your health and making sure that you don't get knocked down by something like Lyme again? Because like you said, we are always facing stressors, especially in modern day. In 2025, soon to be 2026, we are facing the most amount of stressors that I think that we've ever faced in a society. How would you, or what would you share to people as things that you do for your own health that people can practice moving forward?
Yeah, 2 things that I'm really passionate about these days. One is low-grade inflammation, which, big surprise, also connects back to your gut. And 2 is nervous system, just nervous system. And I know
it's trying to get into that more.
Jenna pay you to say that?
No, but I guess we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's such a buzzword, again, like nervous system regulation, but the more I also learn about it and understand just how deeply connected our nervous system is to how we perceive the world, how we act, our stress levels, our cortisol, and knowing, again, that the cortisol actually is inflammatory for our whole body and for our gut. And when the gut is inflamed, you get leaky gut often, which then creates this vicious cycle of more inflammation throughout your body, more nervous system and physiological dysregulation. So for me right now, I'm super passionate about, nervous system regulation. How can I, even in my own busy life, I'm a mom, I have a toddler, I run the business, I have so many things that I'm working on. How can I regulate my nervous system so I can really show up in the best possible way? And how can I support my gut, which is directly tied to, managing inflammation in my body, and just supporting my overall well-being. I just think it doesn't have to be complicated. So many of the things that I do on a daily basis, it's really back to basics. hydration, my probiotic, eating fiber-rich foods to nourish my gut microbiome, daily movement, and ideally some sort of daily nervous system regulation practice, whether that's a 10-minute walk or a short meditation or just a few deep breaths. And sleep. Sleep is so healing. It's anti-inflammatory. It helps with so many things. It supports our gut and our digestion. So that's really my little, approach.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah,
You
Jill
nailed
and I,
everything that we talk about.
Jill and I are restarting. I don't even know. It's not starting our nervous system journey, but it's, like I said too, living in 2025, it's hard when the constant stimulation with literally everything. It's nice to hear someone that owns a probiotic company to also share the holistic ways that you are approaching your health and not just saying, take a probiotic and like your health will completely change.
No, absolutely. And that's another common, that's just in general. Maybe it's in the supplement industry, but even beyond that in the, I think, health and wellness industry, that people think one thing is going to be the only thing that they need to do to tomorrow be a whole new person. And it's just, it doesn't work that way. It's the small habits that support our overall well-being. Yes, the gut plays a really important role. And there's other things you really need to be doing. It's funny, I've once or twice encountered people who were like, oh, I'm taking Omni-Biotic Detox. Now I can eat way worse and, the junk food. Because
you're like, stop that.
No.
That is not what we intended this product to work. Yeah.
And it's just, it's also not how it works because, all these toxins that you're then taking in, the overly processed foods, your little gut microbes can't really, if that happens it's like a storm, right? They can't constantly work against that.
Yeah. Owning a business, being a mom, just being yourself as an individual, when all of those things kind of come head to head and maybe, your child is having a bad day and then the business has some big problems, what do you do as far as your mindset to get you through? Like, what are your tips and tricks from de-escalating from a super stressful day, week, few weeks?
For me, it always comes back down to like hardcore prioritization. I think I personally get caught up in a cycle of overwhelm when I feel like all the things that I thought I wanted to get done this week aren't being done because these more urgent, higher priority things come up. So I think for me, if in those moments when I feel, oh, wow, a lot is coming head to head, I really take a step back and say, what is my hardcore priority? Or what are the one or two things that absolutely have to happen today or this week? And then I build back from there.
Yeah, I love that. That's super helpful.
I'm curious with Omni-Biotic and your company, what moving forward is the big things or what's next? I don't know if that's, you guys are just like really, steady on just like keeping what you have going, but is there anything that you are looking forward to with the company or research that's coming out that you guys are working on?
Yeah, I think in general, this field of gut microbiome health, it has become a very hot topic. And I'm all for that, that level of education. And I truly think a targeted approach to probiotic medicine is really where we will be going. And it's exciting to have Omni-Biotic at the forefront of that. With that said, our European team is always working on innovative new products. And there's also several products that we haven't yet brought to the US that are out on European markets. So we're always thinking about, what is the next product we can bring in? How can we support our community with the products that really matter most to them? And continuing on this mission of really educating around, the power of the gut microbiome and how you can support yourself through that.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting to think that Europe feels very ahead of us. Like, do you feel that too? Like when you're working, you're like, wow, they're already developing new products. Like you said, like you're looking to see what you can bring over. I'm guessing you're in direct communication with them. Are they kind of like an overarching of your
it's
United States business? Okay.
Yeah, so Omni-Biotic is, the home of Omni-Biotic is Institut Allergosan, which is in Austria.
Yes,
and that's really, a research institute, over 30 years of microbiome research. And that's where the innovation and the new products happen. And they are also the ones who, we work with very closely to then bring some of these products here to the US. The cool thing about Institut Allergosan is while Omni-Biotic is, the core of what they're doing, there are also some other products, and we've actually just this year introduced Caricol, which is Caricol and Caricol Gastro. It's 2 papaya-based products, and that's really focused more on the digestive enzyme power of nature. Caricol really honestly being an amazing product for people with constipation or who feel really full after meals. And then Caricol Gastro is papaya paired with a really special preparation of oats, and it really coats your stomach. So it's fantastic for people with reflux, heartburn, things like that. We've been hearing really great things. So we've just introduced that. And then we also recently launched 2 products for kids, which is the Omni-Biotic AB10 Kids. It's kind of like a small version of the adult version of that product. And then Omni-Biotic Stress Release Kids, which is, the same 9 deeply studied strains from the formulation for adults, but in this really tasty peach flavored fast melt that's just so easy to take for school age kids. And of course, we also have our Omni-Biotic Cat and Dog for the, pets in the family.
Jill's dog, our dog he has some skin issues. We might need to get him on that.
Yeah. So I'll send you guys.
He's been to 3 different vets. No one can figure it out.
He's struggling.
He just has like all of these red dots on his belly, and it doesn't hurt him or anything, but as people who spend our lives talking and working through root cause, it's driving me insane that I can't help him. So we'll get him on that.
Yes.
He'll have an ad. We'll have him in a reel.
Do doctors and practitioners in Germany recommend probiotics to their patients? Is that something that they do there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay. So in Europe, in many of the European markets, oftentimes when people are prescribed an antibiotic, they will be recommended a probiotic alongside. And if it's not by the doctor, it's often at the pharmacy. So the pharmacies have such an integral role in the community health of their communities and towns that I even remember when I was a kid and my mom would bring a script to the pharmacy and the pharmacist would see, like, say it's an antibiotic, they would say, oh, hey, have you considered adding a probiotic for gut support? And so, that's often how it works. And actually, even several hospitals in Europe are now incorporating specifically Omni-Biotic AB10 alongside antibiotic treatment. And guess what? Antibiotic-associated diarrhea goes down, C. diff infections goes down, secondary infections go down, and it's incredible, especially if you think about maybe more vulnerable populations like the elderly, where, if you had just had surgery and then on top of that you're getting antibiotic-associated diarrhea or these severe GI complications from the antibiotics, that's actually a pretty big issue. So yes, it's much more common, and it is much more part of the conversation.
Yeah, I feel like in the United States, it's like you need to be aware of these, 20 side effects, and also don't drink on it.
Yeah,
right.
That's the recommendation. And nothing against pharmacists. It's just like I feel like it's just a completely different talk track.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
If someone listening to this is struggling with their gut health right now, what is the advice that you would give to them?
I would say take stock of kind of your life and your daily habits and really think about how are you nourishing your gut and how are you potentially depleting your gut. The reality is most likely, as we just talked about, you're depleting your gut, whether it's through your diet, your stress levels, alcohol, toxins through makeup, whatever, you're depleting your gut. And then really thinking about what are the steps you can take to gently start nourishing your gut. Taking a probiotic, such a simple way, truly a 1-minute hack. Give it a try. See what happens in 4 to 8 weeks. See if that makes a difference. Adding in things that nourish your gut, especially from a food perspective. Your fibers, anything that's anti-inflammatory, even herbs like turmeric can be so nourishing, and ginger. And then removing things that are inflammatory. Alcohol, overly processed foods, stress, if you can, incorporating stress management practices. And lastly, getting help. If it's truly something that doesn't resolve on its own, or if it's something that's been there for a really long time, get help. Find a practitioner who knows how to test, to really look for root causes and then start repairing from there.
I love that. I think that, like you said, you have firsthand experience of something that was bothering you for so long, and then finding the world of functional health and practitioners. I also love the thought of, like you said, kind of auditing your life and looking at what are you doing? And, even listening to episodes like this one of we're talking about the things that can be stressing out your gut. What are things that you're listening to this and you're like, I am probably drinking way too much? Because I work with clients and something I notice is that they'll be doing so many good things and I'll sit there and I'll be like, but you're going out every weekend and that's not a knock to you because Jill and I love to go out and have fun, but could that be hindering or affecting your gut health negatively? And you almost have to be really honest with yourself, as I'm sure you were looking at your lifestyle, and I'm sure your stress was not helping your Lyme. So I love that so much.
Yeah.
Jill and I like to end every episode with your biggest health hack. We've kind of talked a lot about them, but anything you're doing nervous system regulation, any tool or anything that you're really obsessed with right now, it could be, or a book, it could be literally anything that's working for you right now.
In general, I feel like my biggest health hack is just daily movement. I truly am a different person. It hits so many boxes for me. And, I don't mean like the HIIT class you do at 5 a.m. I mean like a nourishing walk or, your strength training. But for me, it really grounds me in my body without distractions. That's so powerful. And then the other thing I've really been loving lately is red light. I like to do that with, a meditation in front of red light. There's just so many interesting studies emerging around the benefits for mitochondrial health and obviously skin health and circadian rhythm and also nervous system regulation. So that's been my other, habit stack that I've been really enjoying.
I love that. I need to get a red light. That's like one of the gadgets I don't.
Shocked you don't have one.
I am too. Yeah.
I gave mom and dad one for Christmas a few years ago and they don't use it. So maybe
maybe I'll take it and bring it home after Christmas.
Yeah, try it there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, the link to the products will be in the show notes. This was so insightful. I feel like such an information-packed episode. We're so grateful. And guys, we take it. Like, we love these products so much. I'm such a fan and just grateful for all the work that you are doing, your sister, your dad, the company, to really bring really good science-backed, clinical studies-backed products to the market. So
giving a new rep to probiotics in general.
Yeah.
So
thank you for coming on.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for having me and for the kind words. And it was such a pleasure talking to you both.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.